Wednesday, September 3rd. Yeah, September. And leading off September, unfortunately, we had someone drive into a crowd at Kipona, and the victim still recovering. And now we're learning more about the driver. So there's the vehicle. You've seen this a number of times. You've been keeping up with the news the past couple of days. We want to bring you the very latest in terms of what may have been the mental state of the suspect at this point. We've been poring over a blog that she had made public in the past, and we have some new information from a relative as well. And that is the person we're talking about. Let's bring in our reporters on this. It is Maxine Rose who's covering this today, and Alexa Southard, who is our digital manager, who has been poring over the blog contents as well. Guys, let's start with the victims. How are they doing today? Let's give us the latest update.
So we do know today in a GoFundMe from the family that the 6-year-old that was hurt is now in stable condition. So that is good news in terms of that. They did say that his recovery is going to be long and uncertain. He had a number of injuries, unfortunately, from the crash. He wasn't critical, but now he is stable. So I'm just going to pull up really quick picture of him, if you can see my screen here. This is the 6-year-old who was injured in the crash. So GoFundMe was started for him. We do have the link on that on our page there. This morning, actually, when I looked at it, right as soon as it was basically started, it had $100 worth of donations. Now it's up to 24,000, as you can see.
Well, this is the national story. I've had friends from across the country asking me about this. So this really got going, and people want to know, why did this happen? Let's quickly go over the other victims here. Yeah. Tell me about them.
Yeah, so we do have another victim here. So in total, it was 3 victims.
Right.
So we have the 6-year-old, and then we have a well-known photographer from the area. Her name is Morgan. She was hit as well during the Kipona Festival. And then we had a city worker. We don't know the identification of the city worker, but we did get the chance to speak with Morgan's, a friend of Morgan. So I can share my screen. Let me just pull up. There's also a GoFundMe for her. So apparently in her recovery, she's in need of a new wheelchair because her wheelchair was damaged in the crash very badly. So her wheelchair actually helps her communicate. So right now in her recovery, she's unable to really communicate with the hospital staff. So there is a fundraiser for her to get a new wheelchair. Fortunately, that's raised $22,000 so far. So right. Getting closer to that $35,000 goal.
Okay. Maxine, let's go over some of these things that we've learned from the blog and maybe some of the problems in the past that this suspect has had.
Yeah. So just jumping right in here, I have it up in front of me. But it goes through a number of things: mental health struggles, marriage struggles. She talks about substance abuse problems. And as we know now, the suspect, her name is Elizabeth Borer. She's facing charges of DUI of a controlled substance, aggravated assault, things like that as well. But people had talked about what she looked like. Thank you for showing that, Alexa. Yep, that's the blog there. People have talked about, the witnesses on scene seeing kind of her face, that she just looked possessed was the word that a lot of people used. And now what we're hearing from her husband, who I got the chance to speak with over the phone today, he, also talked about her psychological troubles, her mental health issues, and kind of says that is really what caused her to, get behind the wheel and essentially, I guess, allegedly, right, do that.
All right. Well, what's the most recent post?
The most recent one is titled "When Love Turns into Control: My Story of a Coercive Psychiatric Abuse." So that's interesting.
How long ago was that? When was the date?
May 23rd, 2025.
So nothing since May, though. So we don't have any clue about her mental state recently based on the blog.
Right. That's true. That is very true. Yeah. The husband told me, I tried to get her into to mental health facility, or I did, admit her into a mental health hospital 3 times. She was let out all 3 times, of course. But that post from May 2025 kind of tells a different story, Joel D. She says here, I never imagined that trying to leave my husband would lead to being locked away against my will, but that's exactly what happened. She talks a little bit more about that, claiming, he fabricated stories, he twisted facts, he convinced others, yada, yada, yada. So you can kind of get into her head a little bit. Yes, it wasn't something that was posted the week of the incident, but you could tell that there was some maybe home life stuff, mental health struggles that we
Okay.
are not getting the full picture of
Well, let's
at
get
this
to
point.
Alexa now, because you've poured over a lot of these postings. Was anything
Yeah.
consistent that you saw?
It was very consistent to me that from her perspective, she felt like she had made a lot of growth and progress in
Mhm.
what she was calling her journey a lot. So it seems like she was having some type of, spiritual kind of work that she was doing. I mean, this is obviously from her perspective. Like, it's what somebody puts online, which, as we all know, sometimes people only put the best things, or if somebody is in a mental health situation, there could be psychosis, there could be all these different things that we at this point do not know. However, it was very consistent with that she was working on herself. There was a repetitive thing that was the kind of, I don't want to say discontent in the marriage, but that they were obviously going through some struggles, and she was being very open and kind of vulnerable with this blog that it was no secret that they were
Do we
going
have any
through.
idea how many people had seen this before? Like, was this popular, or was this just someone doing their own thing and now we're
I'm
going to
not
look at it?
I'm not sure we have that answer. I don't, at least. I'm not sure if Maxine does, but I think a lot of things. The way I kind of saw this blog is it's almost like journal entries.
Right.
Like where somebody might feel more comfortable writing it in a notebook that they hide under their bed. This person has it in an online forum type of thing.
Right.
I didn't see any like place on the
Comments.
blog where people were commenting or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Okay.
Obviously now that we put it out there, and other outlets have put it out there, I'm sure there will be more eyes on it.
Yeah.
Were they pretty consistent, like every couple weeks, and then it just stopped? Like, how often were these done?
Here, I can share, I can pull it back up. There was a lot in April. There was pretty consistently in April. You have April 6th, 7th, 10th. And some of them actually, she was talking about like her home life, like how she grew up. She was saying a bit about like her family. She had described her father as a drinker. And apparently her mother had died when she was 8 years old, or
Okay.
8 or 9. But
Right.
in pretty early childhood, her mother had passed away, and she had kind of given some insight as to her stepmother, the woman that her father had ended up with. I think that there was some abuse and drug and
Okay. I want
alcohol.
to get, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff might be relevant, some of it's not, and it all stopped, a number of months ago.
Right.
I want to get to, what is the husband saying today about this, and what maybe he thinks was going on very recently that could have led to this.
So unfortunately, Joel D, he did not go into much detail about some of the recent stuff. He did not even really reply to me when I said, it must be difficult to go through all of those blog posts. There was just kind of radio silence there. Other than him, of course, confirming with us that that is her public blog. He said, he's working on getting an attorney, working and figuring it out. One thing that I did think was interesting, though, is he said that he hasn't spoken with her since I think what he said before the incident happened. So she's in Dauphin County Prison now. I asked, have you seen her or anything, and
Are they
he was like, no, I
estranged?
haven't spoken with her.
Do they live together?
He did not specifically state that, but they do have 5 children together. They had twins recently. That was also something that he talked about with me just briefly. I asked him kind of when did he start to see things kind of change in her, and he said after the birth of the twins. And per his Facebook post, they turned one in April 2024. So gives you an idea kind of for the course of past 2 years.
So they're over 2 years old then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the part that I keep thinking about is this background is kind of interesting. A lot of people are asking, why would this happen? This doesn't really answer that. This paints more of the past than the present. And the people that were hit may not care about why. They're just, going through their own part of recovery. But we'll see if this leads to any kind of defense for her. Sometimes there's mitigating circumstances, there's temporary insanity. There's all kinds of things that may happen. But a quick question for you, Maxine. Did the husband say why he wanted legal representation?
He said he just wanted to protect him and his family. I mean, he was pretty straightforward in saying, this is not like her. This is not something that she would, do normally. She's a good person, saying other things like that. And then, but kind of alluding to the fact, of course, that was her behind the wheel.
Right.
But I think then he kind of wanted to be careful with what he was saying, as, he, wants to make sure that she has proper representation and whatnot.
That she has
at the end of the day.
representation. Okay.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's for him and for her, like kind of for the. I'm not sure. He didn't really specify, but he just wanted to again protect himself, protect his family.
Are the toxicology results in as to what substance and how much of it?
I have not seen that.
No, I don't think what substance, and that's something that we were talking about in the newsroom earlier today. It did say a controlled substance, but that could be anything from like Xanax, that because in the blog post she does mention she was on anxiety medications at some point. So while it could be it could be meth, it could be heroin, it could be anything that is considered a controlled substance. At this point, we don't know. I do want to queue up a comment really quick. Robin said, because of this, you guys think that it's okay for her to ram her car because she has mental health issues. Not what we're saying at all. We're just kind of giving you guys an insight as to maybe where the types of where the mindset may have been. And, this is something in news that we're going to continue to follow. And Maxine was there the night of the incident and has continued to follow. And the first thing, obviously was getting to the scene and speaking with everybody who had witnessed it, who were obviously traumatized. And now, speaking with the husband in this case, who is also going through something traumatizing, so it's more of and the lights go out on me, more of just kind of giving people who may not have understood of anything about this woman who allegedly committed this crime, but
right.
Right.
Correct. Well, but I also, I did point it out earlier. I'll do it again. This doesn't excuse anything. The people, there were choices made that day, and this person made a choice to drive purposefully into that area. We've seen the video. We saw the results. So,
and can I add to that too? I just want to say too, a lot of people on social media have been writing, I found her Facebook page, I found, whatever, and saying she looks like a normal person. She just looks like she was, going about her daily life, and nothing seemed like, of course, everything on social media looks better, right? But that's the fact of the matter, that people might put out there that things are looking good, but things clearly were not.
And I think there's some fatigue to anytime any event happens, whether it's a school shooter, which we saw recently in Minneapolis, or something like this. When we say mental health issues, it's not an excuse for the action. It is a piece of what goes into maybe their reasoning, but it doesn't,
Right. What
it
could
doesn't
lead
mean
someone to do
it's
that?
excusable
Yeah.
by any means.
Right. And, the first thing everybody had asked when it happened was, what's the motive? What's the motive? We don't know that yet, but this is something that I'm sure police are looking at in their investigation too. So, as investigators and officials.
That's a great point. That's a great
Yeah.
point, because once again, I use my friends who contact me as a barometer from across the country, and they're like, was this politically motivated? We've seen some of these high profile drivers go into crowds with a motive, but usually that's a crowd that's doing something, like it's protesting something, and those people don't like the protesters, so they run into them. This wasn't that kind of an event. That was a one-sided event. That's a protest. This was a community event that didn't have political angles to it. So I don't think that was it. But that's the first thing that hits people's minds. Was this intentional? And if so, why? Doesn't excuse it, but you want to know why when these things occur, right?
Right, for sure. And I think everybody's just trying to make sense of it all. The community's trying to make sense of it. I think it hit home for a lot of people. I think even people here just were saying, like, I was standing in front of that food truck. I was standing right there. It
At
could
some
have been
point
me.
they were, yep.
It could have been. It could have been my family, right? Like, I was there an hour before. We poured through tons of comments that people were saying. It could have been me. It could have been my kid. So I think that's where we are trying to, as well as the public, piece things together and try to.
Yeah. Final thought, Maxine. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I just was going to add to that. I think also the family is trying to put this all together to make sense of it all too. And I know, that's obviously sensitive there, but I think, you could imagine, you think someone and you think everything's okay, and 1 second it's not. Sometimes that happens in families. So I think that is also an interesting piece here. And hopefully, as this continues, we'll be able to kind of hear a little bit more about what kind of led up to this. As you said,
Well,
Joel
if we
D,
can
like
get a
we don't
more
have those
recent
recent.
thing, that would be
Yeah, exactly. Like
applicable. But once again, I still definitely feel more for the victims that got
absolutely,
hit by the vehicle.
absolutely, yeah.
They were just trying to have a nice time and didn't do anything wrong, and it didn't make the decision to
get in a car
hurt
and
others. And,
yeah,
while they were not in any condition to drive or make decisions like that. So
right,
yep, it's all part of it, and that's part of how we try to cover all the pieces of this and let people make their own decisions on it. Thanks for the insight, guys. I appreciate it. And once again, we've had a lot of coverage on this. So search around the website, and you saw some examples of, if you want to give to those victims, once again, that are going through so much right now. It's really been a nice outpouring of support financially. And if you can spare a couple dollars, I'm sure they could appreciate that in part of the recovery. So once again, thanks for watching. 21 Next, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.